Over 12 years, Andrei Chikatilo, he was also known as the Rostov Ripper, claimed the lives of at least 52 people. And today we're going beyond the headlines
Yeah.
to understand, what drove his horrific acts.
This case is really, it's like a dark mirror.
Yeah.
Reflecting not only, the brutality of his crimes,
Right.
but also like the cracks in Soviet society at the time.
Yeah.
And even, the human psyche itself.
So we have a lot of research here, right? We have accounts that detail his upbringing
Mhm.
and his seemingly normal life.
Yeah.
And also the systemic failures, I think, that allowed him to operate for so long.
For so long. It's incredible.
What's the first layer
Yeah.
that we need to peel back to try and understand this really complex case?
Well, I think to truly grasp, the depths of this darkness,
Right.
you really have to start, with his origins. You have to go back.
Mm-hmm.
Chikatilo was born in 1936 in Ukraine during the Holodomor,
Right.
which was like a man-made famine. It devastated the region.
Yeah.
Imagine like a childhood
Wow.
where hunger is like your constant companion,
Yeah.
where death is like a daily occurrence.
Right.
And studies have shown that this kind of severe early trauma, it can really have a profound impact on brain development,
Right.
especially in areas that govern, emotional regulation
Yeah.
and empathy.
It's almost unimaginable, isn't it?
It is.
To grow up in that kind of environment.
Yeah.
And there's even that story, although it's unverified,
Mhm.
that that Chikatilo's older brother
Right.
was abducted and cannibalized during this time.
Exactly.
Wow.
And even if it's untrue,
Right.
right? The fact that this story even circulated within his family,
Yeah.
it speaks volumes about, the desperation and fear
Right.
that permeated their lives.
It's just like, wow.
It really underscores the profound impact
Yeah.
that the Holodomor had on the collective psyche,
Right.
shaping Chikatilo's formative years.
So, okay. So we have this incredibly traumatic backdrop.
Yeah.
How did that trauma manifest, as Chikatilo grew older?
Well,
Yeah.
accounts from his school years
Okay.
kind of paint a picture of him as like a shy, bullied child
Really?
who struggled with bedwetting well into adolescence.
Oh, wow.
And these experiences likely compounded his feelings of, inadequacy
Okay.
and fueled this kind of simmering rage
Yeah.
that festered over time.
It's fascinating
Yeah.
and disturbing how someone can harbor, such darkness
Mhm.
while outwardly appearing, quote unquote, normal.
Exactly.
Right. He went on to earn an engineering degree.
He did.
He worked as a teacher. He got married, had children. Like, on the surface, he seemed to be like a model Soviet citizen.
A model citizen.
Yeah.
And that's what makes his case so perplexing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this stark contrast between like his public persona and his hidden depravity.
Right.
It highlights this chilling fact that evil can really lurk beneath, the most ordinary facade.
It's true.
This kind of duality is often seen in individuals who have experienced, profound trauma.
Right.
They learn to compartmentalize,
Yay.
to create like a public self that kind of masks their inner turmoil.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
This carefully constructed facade
Yeah,
makes his first known murder in 1978 all the more shocking.
it does.
9-year-old Yelena Zakatnova was lured into an abandoned house.
And tragically, an innocent man was convicted and executed for that crime.
Oh, wow.
And this miscarriage of justice gave Chikatilo years of freedom,
Oh, my God.
allowing him to really refine his methods
Oh.
and continue his spree.
It's just unbelievable.
Think about the horror, right,
Yeah.
of knowing that the real killer is out there,
Yeah.
that the system failed so catastrophically.
It's a truly horrifying thought.
It is.
And it leads us into a decade of unimaginable suffering.
Right.
As Chikatilo continued to prey on the vulnerable,
Mhm.
he often targeted women and children.
He did.
Many near train stations or in secluded areas, places where he could exert control
Yeah.
and just disappear back into like the anonymity of Soviet life.
And as we delve deeper into his crimes,
Yeah.
we're going to uncover these chilling patterns that emerged.
Okay.
And these patterns, coupled with The brutality of his attacks,
Yeah.
it's going to provide crucial insights into his psyche.
Okay.
So
It's hard to fathom that, that the Soviet authorities initially denied the existence of a serial killer operating within their borders.
it's hard to believe. They saw serial murder as like a symptom of capitalist decay,
Really?
like a Western phenomenon, not something that could occur in their, quote unquote, ideal socialist society.
Oh, wow.
And this ideological blind spot had dire consequences for the investigation.
It's almost unbelievable. They were so fixated on this idea
I know.
that they completely missed like the obvious pattern emerging in these horrific crimes.
Their focus was on like, usual suspects,
Yeah.
petty criminals, individuals with, a history of mental illness.
Right, right.
They relied on these outdated investigative techniques,
Okay.
neglecting the burgeoning field of criminal profiling,
Yeah.
which was already being utilized in the West.
And to add to the absurdity,
Right.
they actually arrested Chikatilo in 1984 for suspicious behavior.
They did. But his party membership, his family, his seemingly normal life all acted as this kind of shield.
Oh, wow.
There was this reluctance to believe that a man like him could be capable of such atrocities.
Oh, yeah.
So he was released due to lack of concrete evidence,
Oh.
and the murders continued.
This raises so many questions about the systemic failures
Yeah.
that allowed him to evade justice for so long.
Yeah.
It's a tragic example of how societal biases and rigid ideologies
Right.
can hinder investigations
They can.
and lead to further suffering.
Absolutely. We must learn from these mistakes
Yeah.
and understand how seemingly ordinary individuals
Yeah.
can harbor such darkness.
It's true.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is.
Ah.
It's a chilling reminder, I think, that even in a society, that's striving for order and control, the potential for chaos and darkness can still lurk,
Okay.
beneath the surface. But as the body count climbed, the pressure on those Soviet authorities, it really intensified.
Yeah.
I mean, they could no longer deny the presence of a serial killer, in their midst.
Right. The public was like gripped by fear at this point.
Oh, yeah.
And the Rostov Ripper became like this terrifying specter haunting the region.
Absolutely.
This mounting pressure finally forced a shift in the investigation.
It did. In 1990, a dedicated task force was formed, headed by Isa Kostoyev, who was this like seasoned investigator, totally determined to catch Chikatilo.
Oh, wow.
They brought in new forensic techniques that were just beginning to emerge in the Soviet Union,
Okay.
like blood typing and psychological profiling.
Okay.
I mean, these were revolutionary tools at the time,
Yeah.
offering like a new way to understand and track criminals.
This feels like a critical turning point.
It was.
Can you tell us a little bit more about these techniques and how they were used in this specific case?
Sure. So blood typing, for example,
Okay.
it allowed investigators to narrow down the pool of suspects
Okay.
by comparing samples found at the crime scenes
Okay.
with those of individuals they were investigating.
Okay.
So this, combined with psychological profiling,
Right.
which analyzes crime scene details and victim characteristics
Mm.
to create like a potential psychological and behavioral sketch of the perpetrator.
Right.
It painted a clearer picture of who they were looking for.
So instead of relying on like traditional methods and assumptions,
Yeah.
they were beginning to use like scientific and psychological tools
Exactly.
to track this killer.
Exactly. And this shift in approach, it was crucial.
Yeah.
I mean, they were no longer just looking for somebody who fit the stereotype of a criminal,
Right.
but rather someone who matched a very specific psychological and behavioral profile.
Remember, Chikatilo was a master of disguise.
Oh, yeah.
He presented himself as like a devoted family man and a respected member of the community.
Right.
His outward respectability had for years shielded him from suspicion.
But with these new tools and a more open-minded approach, the investigative net, really began to tighten around Chikatilo. And he, maybe emboldened by years of evading capture, he grew more reckless.
Wow.
His crimes became more frequent, and he was actually spotted acting suspiciously near a train station, a familiar hunting ground.
This is where the story takes like an almost unbelievable turn. What happened next?
So an undercover officer, right, patrolling the area,
Yeah.
noticed Chikatilo's strange behavior, saw him engaging with potential victims, exhibiting the very patterns identified by the profiling team.
Oh, wow.
And trusting his instincts,
Mm-hmm.
the officer decided to follow.
It's a moment that could have easily been missed.
You could have.
What if that officer hadn't been there?
Yeah.
Or hadn't, like, recognized the significance of Chikatilo's actions?
It's a chilling thought, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, the case could have dragged on, with more innocent lives lost.
Right.
But thankfully, the officer's vigilance, it paid off.
Yeah.
When they apprehended Chikatilo, they found enough evidence to finally link him to several of the murders.
Oh, wow.
Bloodstains on his clothing.
Yeah.
And DNA analysis, which is a groundbreaking technique at the time,
Right.
provided, like, the undeniable proof they needed.
So after years of terror, the Rostov Ripper was finally unmasked.
He was.
It must have been, like, incredible relief
right.
for the people who lived under the shadow of his crimes.
Absolutely. The arrest sent shockwaves, really, through the Soviet Union. I mean, people were horrified,
Yeah.
but also relieved that the nightmare was finally over. But the story wasn't over yet. The trial of Andrei Chikatilo was about to begin.
Right.
And it would become a media spectacle unlike any other.
So the world watched as the man who had committed, such unspeakable acts was brought to justice.
He did.
What can you tell us about the trial and Chikatilo's behavior during this time?
So the trial, it began in 1992, and it was a media frenzy.
Yeah.
People from all over the Soviet Union, even internationally, were captivated by this case.
Wow.
And Chikatilo's behavior during the trial, well, it was erratic
Okay.
and disturbing.
Okay.
He would shout, he would rant, he even undressed in the courtroom.
What?
He seemed to be putting on a show, really playing the part of a madman.
It seems like a desperate attempt to avoid responsibility for his actions.
From a forensic psychology perspective, it's not uncommon for individuals who are facing, like, overwhelming evidence of their crimes
Right.
to feign insanity.
Okay.
It's a legal strategy, kind of a last-ditch effort
Yeah.
to escape the full consequences of their actions. But it raises complex questions about, like, the nature of evil and the limits of human understanding.
That's a good point.
But the court, however, they saw through his act. In 1992, Andrei Chikatilo was found guilty of 52 murders.
Wow.
And sentenced to death.
So his reign of terror was finally over.
It was.
Mm.
But the scars that he left on Soviet society
Yeah.
and on the families of his victims,
Right.
they run deep. This case forced people to confront a darkness that they had tried to deny,
Right.
to acknowledge that evil could exist within their seemingly perfect society.
And it also raised, like, these uncomfortable questions about the system itself.
It did.
About the failures that allowed a monster like Chikatilo to thrive for so long.
It's a stark reminder that no society is immune to the potential for evil.
It's true.
And that we must constantly strive to understand and address the factors that contribute to these horrific acts. But, Chikatilo's case also offers valuable lessons
Right.
about the power of science,
Yeah.
the importance of critical thinking,
Right.
and the need for constant vigilance.
Yeah, absolutely. The execution of Andrei Chikatilo back in 1994, it brought a definitive end to his reign of terror.
Yeah.
But the ripple effects of his crimes, they continue to resonate. This case has really, I think, forced us to confront some uncomfortable truths
That has.
about human nature, about the potential for darkness,
Yeah.
that exists within seemingly ordinary individuals.
Right.
And about the systemic failures that can allow, such darkness to flourish.
It's a chilling reminder that we must be vigilant, right?
Yeah.
Not only in identifying potential threats,
Yeah.
but also in addressing, the root causes of violence.
Right.
And I think Chikatilo's case, while extreme,
Yeah.
it can offer valuable insights into that complex interplay, right?
Yeah.
Of individual psychology
Yeah.
and the societal factors that can contribute to such horrific acts.
You mentioned earlier the impact of Chikatilo's early childhood trauma
Yeah.
during the Holodomor.
Mm-hmm.
What can his case teach us about the importance of early intervention?
Right.
And addressing, like, childhood trauma?
Well, I mean, Chikatilo's childhood was marked by, extreme deprivation and violence.
Right.
And the Holodomor, with its, widespread starvation and death, it created an environment of just profound fear and insecurity.
Right.
And these experiences, they likely had a very significant impact
Mm-hmm.
on his developing brain,
Wow.
particularly in areas responsible for emotional regulation,
Ah.
empathy, impulse control.
So the trauma that he experienced as a child may have laid the groundwork for his later brutality.
While it's impossible to draw like a direct causal link,
Right.
research has shown that early childhood trauma can increase the risk
Okay.
of developing violent tendencies later in life. It's like a wound
Yeah.
that, if left untreated,
Yeah.
can fester and grow,
Right.
eventually leading to destructive behaviors.
This underscores the importance then
And it's
of providing, support and resources
absolutely.
for children who have experienced trauma.
Yeah.
Early intervention through therapy,
Mhm.
counseling, creating safe and nurturing environments
Right.
can be crucial in mitigating the long-term effects
Yeah.
of these experiences.
Absolutely.
Right.
By addressing childhood trauma, we can help to break the cycle of violence
Mhm.
and create a more compassionate and empathetic society.
Another aspect of this case that I find particularly disturbing
Yeah.
is the Soviet Union's initial denial of
Oh,
a
yeah.
serial killer problem. Their ideological blind spot allowed Chikatilo to operate unchecked for years.
For years.
How can we guard against these kinds of societal biases
Right.
in our own systems?
It's a crucial question.
Mhm.
I think we must be willing to challenge,
Yeah.
our own assumptions
Yeah.
and biases,
Right.
to acknowledge that even the most seemingly perfect systems
Yeah,
can have flaws.
it's true.
We need to create systems that are open to scrutiny,
Okay.
that encourage critical thinking,
Mm-hmm.
dissent,
Yeah.
and that prioritize evidence-based decision-making
Yeah.
over ideology.
It's about creating a culture of accountability and transparency, I think,
It is.
where information is shared freely
Mm.
and different perspectives are valued.
Absolutely.
We need to be able to identify and address our blind spots,
Yes.
to learn from past mistakes,
Right.
and to constantly adapt our system
Right.
to better protect the vulnerable.
Exactly. And it's not just about institutions.
Right. It's also about, individual responsibility.
Yeah.
We all have biases,
Yeah.
and it's crucial to be aware of them,
Mm-hmm.
to challenge them,
Right.
and to be open to different perspectives.
Yeah.
This is how we create, a more just and equitable society
Right.
where everyone feels safe
Yeah.
and protected.
Throughout this deep dive,
Yeah.
we've explored, the darkness of Chikatilo's crimes.
We have.
But we've also seen, glimpses of hope.
We have.
The dedication of the investigators who finally brought him to justice.
Yeah.
The advancements in forensic science that helped unravel his crimes, and the resilience of the families, who continue to seek healing and understanding.
It's a reminder that even in the face of unimaginable horror,
Mhm.
the human spirit can endure.
Mhm.
And that by learning from these tragic events, by working together to address those root causes of violence,
Mhm.
and by striving to create, a more just and compassionate world.
Yeah. We can honor the memory of the victims
Yeah.
and work towards a future where such atrocities are no longer possible.
It's a powerful message, and one that I think is important for all of us to remember. As we conclude our deep dive into the case of Andrei Chikatilo, I want to leave you with this thought.
Yeah.
What can we do, individually and collectively, to create a world where such darkness can no longer take root? It's a question that deserves our continued attention,
It does.
our empathy, and our unwavering commitment to building a better future. Thank you for joining us on this difficult but important journey.
If you enjoyed this video and want to dive deeper into more cases like this one, make sure to subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to like the video if you found the story compelling, and share it with your friends and family who might be interested in true crime and mysteries. By subscribing, you'll stay up to date with all our latest content and join a growing community of curious minds exploring the most fascinating cases. Click the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything.